Hi, my name is Leah Day, and welcome to this video for the Free Motion Quilting Project. Today we are English paper piecing, actually. We're not going to be free motion quilting because I want to share with you the technique that I used to piece the face and body for my goddess in the pieced version of Express Your Love. And basically I chose probably the most obnoxious, ridiculous way of piecing this particular section of her face. I decided that I wanted to piece it with tiny hexagons, and I chose the smallest size that I could possibly find, the 1/4-inch hexagons. And they were absolutely ridiculous, and it took more than 2 months to piece. And so I don't really recommend doing it this way. I would strongly recommend using a bigger size, maybe the 1-inch size pieces, something bigger, because it really is kind of a pain to put together. It's such a tiny pieces, but at the same time it did give me the look that I was going for. And there are times when you're designing something and you're making something very special and you have a particular look in your mind of how it's supposed to go. Well, then you have to sometimes bite the bullet and go with what is more difficult than what is easy. And I've made these kinds of decisions throughout my design process with different quilts. And so it's not unusual for me to pick a pretty annoying way of putting things together. But understand that it's always a choice and that you don't have to make things difficult for yourself. But at the same time, if you're needing a handwork project, if you're needing something to carry along with you, this is certainly a project that's a lot of fun. It's very calming. And especially if you're on a long road trip, this is something that's not going to take up a whole ton of space, and you can work on it continually. You probably will never ever finish it. My good friend, the singing quilter, Kathy Miller, she goes on tours throughout Australia, Canada, United States, and this is what she does. She puts English paper piecing with the tiniest 1/4-inch hexagons in her bag, and she's able to piece the entire trip and keep the project small at the same time. So let's get started. Let me first explain to you a little bit about the paper pieces that we use for English paper piecing and how they're measured when you're working with the hexagon pieces. So here's my pack of 1/4-inch hexagons. And basically they're these little pre-cut papers. They look like this. And this is what it looks like when they are fresh out of the bag. They don't have any holes in them. They're just basically a pre-cut, laser cut piece of paper. After you use them once, you're going to see that you have, of course, all the little dots from your needle piercing the paper, because we're going to be stitching through this to baste the edges over. That's okay, you can still use these. So if you pick up one pack, you're going to end up with 200 pieces in a pack. That's plenty to get started with, and that's more than enough to piece the entire face section if you're wanting to torture yourself the same way I did. So let me explain to you exactly how you get started. Basically, take your piece, and the really interesting thing about how these are measured, you can probably tell this looks bigger than a 1/4 of an inch. It's measured by the length of the edges of the hexagon, not the length across or diagonally or whatever. It's the length of the edges, the sides themselves. So they're 1/4-inch pieces, and so if you measure that, what you'll want to do is just cut yourself some strips that are wide enough, and this is way wider than it needs to be, but you want to cut yourself strips of fabric that are wide enough so that you have at least, let's say it's not really a 1/4 of an inch on all edges, but if you want to go with any kind of general guideline, a 1/4 inch will probably set you right. And then you're going to just trim it off. And what I did, since I knew I needed a whole ton of these, I just sat down, cut my fabric, pinned it to the hexagon to the fabric, and made an entire bag of pinned pieces. And so that was really efficient. All the pinning was done. I had the hexagon secured to the fabric it was going onto, and there was a pin in place that would hold everything securely, and then that went into a bag. So that was kind of a nice little assembly line process. So this is just the 1/4 inch. I'm going to actually demonstrate using the 1/2 inch piece because it'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing. So again, I cut my strips so that they had enough fabric on all sides that I could really work with. I think this is about 1.5 inches right now I'm working with. All right, And again, this looks like a pretty big hexagon. We're measuring from the edges, from the sides. That's the sizing of it. Now, how did I know how many hexagons I needed to do this entire face section? Well, basically what you want to do is take your master pattern of Express Your Love and go to search online for hexagon graph paper, and you can actually print out hexagon graph paper to any size. So you're basically saying, plugging into the system, I want this to be a 1/2 inch on the edges, and you can make yourself a nice piece of graph paper. Lay this graph paper on top of your master pattern and trace the outline. You want to kind of play with the placement so you don't have tons of extra hexagons that you don't need. But I kind of played with this, and you can see these are the 1/2 inch hexagons. And so I only need, once you start numbering them, I only need 21 to do this upper chest section. And so, you know, you can obviously tell 21 of these bigger hexagons is a lot better than probably the 50 or so it would have taken had I used the smaller ones in that section. So my choice was to do 1/4 inch on her face, the 1/2 inch on her body, and there's actually 2 body sections. You can see those here. 2 body sections, and so all told I'm going to need somewhere around 100 of the 1/2 inch hexagons. And then her arm section, at the time I was thinking about doing the 3/8 inch hexagons for her arm section. I'm probably going to revise this and do these with the 1 inch hexagons because this is the most forward part of the pattern. I also don't really want to piece 186 of these. So I've come to reality. I've had a reality check on this one. So I think I am going to redesign this one. So it's one of those things to kind of keep in mind. Going ahead and make your graph and lay it out and count the number of hexagons. And once you get that sticker shock of how many you're going to have to make, revise, reconsider, redesign if you need to, and come up with another plan. It might end up being that this is just too time-consuming of a project for me right now, and I might put it away. Just put away that section of it. Her body and her arm can wait for right now, and that's okay. We go through different periods where handwork is something that we're doing a lot. You know, maybe you're waiting in line a lot, maybe you're traveling a lot. Sometimes we go through periods where we're not traveling, we want to be on a machine, so get on your machine. Just go with what is working for you. And of course, this is not the only way that we can piece this section of the quilt. You can pick one of the foundation piecing methods that we've learned over the last couple of months. You could piece traditionally, old school way, just piecing some strips together. It's whatever you want. It's your quilt, so make it your own.
Find the next part to this video on English paper piecing at freemotionproject.com. Also check out leahday.com, where you'll find tools and supplies for free motion quilting on your home sewing machine.